Greetings from TV AIBD. Hi, this is Philomena Pragasam with Connect with AIBD. And today I'm talking to a very, very prominent lady. She's none other than Dr. Kiran Bedi, former Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry and IPS retired. She has been 40 years in the Indian Police Service and, breaking glass ceilings wherever she went, and a great inspiration for women and for Indian women, and not only Indian women, but women everywhere around the world. So Dr. Kiran is also taking great pride in being an author. She's just released her latest book, which is Fearless Governance. And thank you so much, Dr. Kiran, for being with us on TV AIBD. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Philo. Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Wonderful to meet you again, and you're looking so fresh. And congratulations on your book, Dr. Kiran. Fantastic title.
Yeah, the title came just on a phone call when I was on a call with my younger sister in the US. And I said, I'm looking for my book. I've written about all my 5 years of work as Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry. As you know, Puducherry is a union territory of India, one of the union territories. And I said, I'm struggling for a name. She says, Didi, she calls me Didi. She says, what? You don't need another name. It's called Fearless Governance, because that's what your life has been, all about fearless work. Because my 40 years of Indian police service, when I started as the first woman in India to join the officer ranks of the Indian police service, has been a fearless decision. So fearless decision, fearless entry, fearless working only among training amongst the boys at that time, all about, and did it all that, no change in the training, no change in the syllabus for me. So, and then from one posting to the other, it's been a life of fearless living.
Fantastic. And how many people can actually attest to that, Dr. Kiran Bedi? You know, a lot of people in the world today are grappling with making decisions, let alone being fearless. So once again, my heartfelt congratulations and appreciation to you. You know, it must have been a great struggle being a policewoman at that time, 40 years ago. Perhaps I'll go back to where you started. You know, what made you take up this career? I know you studied law, but what made you go into the police force at that time?
It's the way I wanted to live my life. I'm a product of very visionary parents, and they were far ahead of their time during the time I was growing. We were 4 girls and no boy in the house, but it was also an intergenerational family. Very conservative. My grandfather was thinking he's got a lot of property and he could marry us off with a lot of property, and there was enough and there was no need to study. But my parents both thought differently. My father was a great tennis player and a very avid reader of positive literature. And my mother was very fond of academics. So 2 streams went into our lives, our girls, we 4 girls, all 4 daughters, is education and sports. Sky is the limit. I went on to become an Asian tennis champion. My younger sister went to play the Wimbledon, and I went on to do my PhD. My point was education for self-reliance, self-dependence, to be an empowered woman, not to be a married woman. Marriage would be one part of my life, but not the be-all and the end-all. Of the times when we were growing up, marriage was the end-all and the be-all of lives. That was not the way it was in my home. Our home was education, sports, and all-round self-reliance and empowerment is the be-all and the end-all. And I was shown by my parents to say, look at the sky. Sky is the limit. Sky is the limit. So,
fantastic.
So that is the way they were visionary, far ahead of their times. And they would always say, dream big. And they had all the investments for our education. We never talked about when are we getting married and losing our identities. It was all about what would you be? How would you be? Grow up to give. In fact, it was also growing up to be very value-based education and also very interfaith. It was very interfaith, value-based. And so that's how it was.
Fantastic. You know, you just talked about losing the identity when one gets married. Did you feel that way when you got married? Very personal question, but you can say yes or no.
No question of my losing my identity. My hard work earned, no question of losing any bit. I was already an Asian tennis champion. How do I finish my past, put it behind? So I was Kiran Bedi. I kept my maiden surname.
Fantastic. That's what we want to hear. That, but you come from an era of 40 years ago, and talking like this 40 years ago surely requires a lot of fearlessness in oneself. And I think, Dr. Kiran, was there anybody you were inspired in? For instance, did any person at that time, besides your parents, inspire you even to be a police officer, for instance?
Look, I was born in 1949. India became independent from the British rule in 1947. So I was growing up in a period where the freedom fighters, the legends of India were all prevalent. Some of them were around still, and there was so much of talk about India becoming free. So I'm actually a freedom child. And Mahatma Gandhi and all those people, Sardar Patel, Sri Aurobindo, all of them were great. And they were part of my books too. And my father too was a very patriotic man. So they were also giving. So I think I grew up in a home of patriotism and value-based. So they were all influencing me. All this atmosphere at that time, our national anthem, our singing national patriotic songs, India, being proud of India as a civilization, enjoying the freedom of India and the independence. I think it was all a part of my DNA at that time. It was a part of my genes at that time.
Fantastic. And also what I noticed when you were talking is this role model, people who were inspiring you. You were born in that freedom era, the era of, I would say, a real hype there, right after independence. And then you see not just men, but women who were fearless, right? Fearless, but I guess the word is just sticking there. And that's what's inspirational, meeting leaders who really inspired and who fought for a certain cause, certainly had an impact on you. Tell me about your journey as a policewoman, Dr. Kiran.
Also, Philo, in my life, during my time, it was a life of simplicity. The khadi, the hand-woven cloth, which Mahatma Gandhi had. Remember the charkha, the weaving wheel?
Yes.
It was a life of simplicity. It was full of a lot of attention, no distractions. We didn't even have a television at that time when I was growing up. We listened to the radio news. So it was a life of simplicity and with minimal means. There was no extravagance in our life, no wastage of time. It was books, valuing and treasuring books. Library in the school was it was a very focused, no distraction, no phones, no social media, no telephones. It was togetherness at the home. You pray together, you eat together, right? You stay together. So, but then it was a life of discipline. That became the rock bottom of my Indian police service, because I was growing up very nationally, patriotically, in an organized, disciplined way to serve the country as I grew. Now, at that time for women, the professions which were open at that time during my time was medical or maybe teaching. So teaching and medical were basic, or nursing. So either you go into medical or you go into teaching. Business was not part of women's careers. But public service became mine. To join the Indian Police Service was to take the examination through the Union Public Service Commission, which is a very tough examination. But then I was very good in academics. I was getting a lot of scholarships, academic and sports. So I was a scholarship girl, and obviously was moving towards self-reliance and working towards serving my country. So with the patriotism came through my uniform. Then I became a National Cadet Corps. While in college, I became a National Cadet Corps, a National Cadet, attending National Cadet in uniform, attending girls' camps, traveling, trekking, mountaineering, all adventure as a part of my life. So policing was a natural transition. For me, it was but believe me, fellow, I did not know that I was going to be the first woman in the officer ranks of the elite Indian Police Service, which is a leadership rank. So that's how it became. But for me, it was a natural transition.
TV AIBD, a platform connecting the world virtually. Bring to your screen a plethora of real-time informative content. Everything from the latest trends in immersive technologies, regional media stories, insight from world leaders, and industry intelligentsia. Empowering broadcasters worldwide. Connect with TV AIBD now, connecting the world.
absolutely. Looking at the words that you're coming up with, there's so much of thought, so much of what would I say, inspirational stuff. And I don't have any surprises as to why you were already in a leading position, because you were actually in such a situation, being inspired and then coming from a family with so much emphasis on academics. But most of all, I like what you said about your parents, the sky is the limit. And that is so great, having 4 daughters and pushing the daughters to achieve great things. I think I really applaud your parents, and part of the journey of fearless governance, I guess, comes from where you started as a kid. Okay, so when you were in the police force, you said that was something which women did not do at that time, but guessing from what you're saying, the feeling of patriotism was so strong at that period after independence. I'm sure lots of women also must have gone into the police force. What was it like for women at that time, being in a police force in a male-dominated arena, for instance? How did you manage?
Again, I go back to the very great combination of sports and academics, which was very rare at that time. Not many students combined books with tennis rackets. For me, it was a school bag and a tennis kit. So one shoulder I had a school bag, the other shoulder I had a tennis kit. I think it was a very rare combination in any family in India at that time. Any family in India at that time, I'm not aware of any friend of mine who equally did it with me, who studied and qualified and made it a national championship. Nobody. When I was growing up, I think I was far ahead of time, because I was the only student, only person who had a vision ahead, is that sports is not going to be my career. My academics will take me to the service which I want to be. So I was far, while my friends would go. So why I'm saying is, I think the combination of sports, excellence in sports, excellence in academics, took me to the excellence in the service. So when I was doing it, I was already ahead of the boys. I was far ahead of the boys. I was stronger, more courageous, more principled, more academically oriented, better read, and values strongly. Time management was critical. I was not wasting my time on dancing in the evening, because while we would finish our tennis matches, everybody would go to the dancing floor. But I had lots of good friends, but I wouldn't go on and on and on. I would return soon after I needed to, get back to my bed and study and read and get rest for the next morning, because I had matches to play, because I was almost making it to the finals every time. See, so the kind of organized time management and thoughts which I grew up in, I think is the ingredient towards excellence. Now, with the kind of, you either make it in academics or you make it in sports. I think I was a very rare combination who did it both, because there was nothing called third. There was no third distraction for me. So I think that's critical to development. If you want to achieve more in life, is how do you spend your youth combining an activity which you want to excel in? It could be music, could be art, it could be sports, and then your books, because education is so critical. So that's where I got the confidence, I got the courage, I developed more the sense of justice, because sports makes you love justice. You play by the rules. You play by the rules of the game. You can't cheat. You got to deserve to win. See, all those traits went into my character. That's what made me stronger in the Indian Police Service, far ahead of the boys as well.
Fantastic. I would have loved to see that had I been in that particular period. Your story is truly something that will motivate a lot of people, because a lot of people think today that academics is all that is important. And that's why we're not having individuals who are well balanced. So this balance between sports, like you said, it has its own set of rules and discipline, and then also the academia will definitely create an all-rounded individual. And you are proof of that, Dr. Kiran Bedi. Okay, let's come back to the point where I want to ask you, if a woman standing there giving orders to guys, how is it like for you? Were you facing a lot of resistance, or you just went on with whatever you had to do? This fearlessness that you're talking about, Dr. Kiran?
Philo, I entered the service as an Asian tennis champion.
Wow, okay.
So I don't think they have another Asian tennis champion entering the Indian Police Service. So at that too at the officer level. So I actually, for me, it's a shift from the sports page to the crime page, because I was making headlines on the sports page before I entered the Indian Police Service. So for me, it was a great shift. And they knew who I was, and they knew I was, but general people may not know. The department knew, the leadership knew who was following me on my sports career, right? But the other general people did not know. But I think as I started to serve and I start to conduct myself, lead the team, groom the team, be nursing to, in a way, nurturing to them, I think I start to get welcomed by the men in the service, because they probably were looking for a leader who would also take care of them, not just shout orders, but work with them. The team spirit, which I think I had as a woman who has a natural emotional connect. I think that's where the strength of the woman is, the emotional quotient. So if you're bright in academics, you got the intelligence quotient. But if you're a woman at heart and a warm heart, you got the emotional quotient. So you are scoring twice over as a female leader. So I think I opened my account pretty fast without knowing that now the gender was becoming my strength and not my weakness.
Absolutely. I do agree with you, with this emotional quotient and the strength that women possess. Most often women tend to take it like, oh, this is a man's area or something like that, without realizing the fact that we have our own unique strength and leadership. What matters is how you actually execute and the kind of decisions you make, the kind of person you are. And I think, Dr. Kiran, at that time, you were not just a lady walking around with a gun, but you also had a tennis racket in one hand. So definitely something that a lot of people would be looking at. Now let's come back to when you were in Puducherry, right? From that journey of police right up to Puducherry. But before that, I also know that you were one of the main persons who actually brought yoga to prison inmates, So this is something which I was reading about, and I said, wow, this is great. How did that help, actually?
Philo, I've grown up in an Indian culture which respects and lives and breathes yoga. I think the Indian strength is yoga. That's why you have an International Day of Yoga. I think the June 3rd week of yoga, it's an international day. Thanks to my Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, who said it at the United Nations, and the UN picked it up to say we declare the one day of the yoga, I think 22nd or 23rd of June is declared the International Day of Yoga. So yoga and an Indian is an integral, it's two sides of the same coin. We've grown with it. So before I brought yoga into the prisons, where I ran the prison of largest prison in the world, liberal democracy, 10,000 men with only 400 women. I ran that program as the governor of that prison. In India, you call it the Inspector General of Prisons. Prior to that, I was Joint Commissioner of Police Training in the Delhi Police and the Police Service. I introduced yoga even there. I brought yoga and meditation for the police officers as well, because I felt it is the mind which governs the body and not body which governs the mind. And yoga is nothing but coordination between the mind and the body. And if your mind and body are well synchronized, and if they are well balanced, then you deliver better, you serve better. So before I took also there, Philo, that I brought in yoga and meditation even in the police officers. I took meditation into the prisons. As I said, the mind is the ruler. It's the mind which governs the body. Body is a slave of the mind. So yoga and meditation are very integrated. They are a merger. So through yoga, you start into meditation because you were getting into mind watch, you're getting into breath watch. So before I brought meditation and yoga into the prison system as a part of daily schedule, I took it to the police and I practiced it with them. I practiced it with my rank and file, breaking hierarchies, working as joint commissioner with them on meditation and yoga. And it worked. It made them better human beings.